Welcome everyone to our March Gender Equity Commission public meeting. That is me negotiating how to take care of my 17-month-old son and his lunch while my husband gets a shower. So that's what you just caught me doing. Again, the reality of life with COVID. So excuse that. Anyway, my name is Amanda Nietrauer, and I'm the chair of the Gender Equity Commission. So glad to see all of you. And so we want to welcome everyone who is joining us in the audience, and of course, welcome our commissioners. And so we're going to go ahead and start with our public roll call so that we can note everyone who is present with us in this moment. And so I'm going to go ahead and just go down the list of everyone who I see on my screen, starting with Jessie Ramey.
Present.
Thank you. Morgan Overton. Commissioner Overton.
Present.
And that was Commissioner Jessie Ramey. Thank you. Commissioner Sarah Schultz.
Here.
Commissioner Higginbotham.
Here.
Good to see you. Commissioner Gross.
Here.
Commissioner Hall. Okay,
Sorry,
present.
here.
You're good. Commissioner Hanson.
Here.
Commissioner Manuel.
Present.
Commissioner Davidson.
Present.
Commissioner Hale.
Present.
Commissioner Newman.
Present.
Commissioner Williams.
Present.
And Commissioner Corbel, we know is present, may or may not be able to say so at this time, but we do know that they're with us at this time. All right, and of course I am present myself. So we so the consent agenda was sent ahead to everyone. That includes reports and also the meeting minutes. And so we're going to go ahead and take this time to vote on accepting, unless there's anyone who wants to talk about any. Okay, Commissioner Manuel.
I have a correction on the minutes. The spelling of my last name is incorrect. It is M-A-N-U-E-L. That is my only notation for the minutes from last.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I apologize, Janet.
No apology.
So I also want to say, if anybody sees my head down, I'm not constantly checking my phone. I'm taking notes. So just want to say that. I'm not shopping at Nordstrom.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hall is our secretary on our executive committee. So thank you for letting us know. You're good, but we appreciate that. Yes, Commissioner Schultz.
My name was also spelled incorrectly, so super minor. It's S-C-H-U-L-Z. And another minor correction is that I was indicated as the chair of the Gender Equity Analysis Committee, and it's actually Commissioner Higginbotham. So Sharon serves as the chair and I am a member. If that committee even exists, but we'll get to that later.
It does for now, yes. It does still exist.
We exist, Sarah. We exist.
You exist.
Okay,
good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all for reading the minutes. Okay, is there any other discussion on the minutes or the reports or any part of the consent agenda before we move to vote on accepting them? Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes and the reports as submitted?
Janet Manuel makes a motion to accept the minutes.
Thank you. Second?
I second.
Thank you. That was Commissioner Overton. Great. Thank you. Okay. So a new business. So we are now excited to formally introduce and welcome our new commissioners. We have 3 new people with us, and I will just kind of briefly read to you a little bit about them, but I would like for our new commissioners to say a few words about who they are and the work that they do, just to give them a chance to introduce themselves to the public and those who may not know the great and important work that they do. So we have us now Commissioner Sloan Davidson, who is the founder and CEO of Hello Neighbor. We have Commissioner Judy Hale, who has over 20 years of experience working on gender equity issues, focusing on human trafficking, domestic violence, as well as many other important issues. And of course, Commissioner Marcel Newman, who is presently serving as the Assistant Director of Pittsburgh's Public Works Department in the Bureau of Administration. And so Commissioner Davidson, would you please introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about you so we and everyone can get a chance to meet you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the kind introduction, and it's really such an honor to be part of this amazing group of people that are really supporting gender equity across the city of Pittsburgh. My name is Sloan Davidson. As stated, I'm the founder and CEO of Hello Neighbor. Hello Neighbor is an organization I founded just shy of 4 years ago, and our mission is to help recently resettled refugee and immigrant families in establishing their new lives in the region. We do that through mentorship and through a variety of other family services and direct service programs to really help guide and support those families on their journey as our newest neighbors. In the past 4 years, we've supported over 500 individuals. It's about 130 families from 15 different countries of origin, and they do live throughout the city and actually throughout the county. And so we've really received a lot of support from everyday Pittsburghers to build this organization, and I'm really deeply appreciative of all of the work that Pittsburghers have done to create a more welcoming, inclusive city, knowing that we have a lot of work to do. But I do believe that we have a good base and people who are really thinking about what equity looks like from the perspective not only of native Pittsburghers, but of the newcomers that are coming to the region as well. And acknowledging how language access and lack of support can create more challenges, and how organizations like Hello Neighbor and like those across the welcoming space are really working to create that sense of belonging. I live in Highland Park. I have 2 young sons who are 2 and 5. I have a rambunctious dog, a lovely partner who helps me on this journey. And I think that's it for now. Oh, and my pronouns are she and her. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Davidson. Commissioner Hale, just a few words, please, about yourself and just introduce yourself. Thank you.
Hi, I'm really excited and honored and humbled to be joining this commission. I am representing the Pittsburgh for CDAW group here, which is the group that took a lead in a coalition of many, many hands bringing the gender equity ordinance to the city of Pittsburgh. We worked with city council and a lot of partners. So I am currently working full-time as the legal advocacy manager for the Women's Center and Shelter of Greater Pittsburgh, and that is the non-attorney advocates who accompany victims to court, even during the pandemic. Some of it's remote and some of it's still in person. We also engage in systems advocacy, advocating for better, safer experiences for victims of domestic violence, intimate partner violence going to court. My past background experience includes serving in the Peace Corps in Moldova. That's in Eastern Europe. There's no pop quiz about where that country is. And I served there and went back and worked there on human rights work and women's rights work and a little bit on CEDAW implementation in Moldova. So I'm really, really excited to be working on that here in my home country. And I live in Swissvale with 3 cats. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Okay, and then Commissioner Marcel Newman, please just introduce yourself and a few words about yourself and the work that you do.
Hi, my name is Marcel Newman. I've been with the city now for almost 19 years. I currently work as a administrator in public works. So I'm deep in the weeds of government bureaucracy, all kinds of administrative work, purchasing, contracts, employees, staffing, just all things public works. Right now we're getting out of our winter maintenance program and snow programs and gearing into more of spring and summer programs. I have two boys. One of them is second year law school, and the other one is not a city forester, hoping to be a city forester one day, but he is in forestry. And I live in Banksville section of the city.
Wonderful, thank you so much. So again, welcome all of you. We're very excited to have you. We're very excited to add your experience and your voices to the work that we're doing. So welcome again. And now I would like to invite our executive director to share the executive director's report. And moving forward, and I apologize for this anew, we'll make sure that it's an item on the agenda. That was an oversight of mine. I meant to make sure that it was its own piece on that, but I will now turn it over to you to give the executive director's report.
Thank you, and I feel like we did a great job with the executive committee with the agenda, but it's a new start, so we'll be figuring it out as we go. And I wanted to mention Jordan Fields is here from the mayor's office. She's our policy coordinator liaison, and might want to, so under new business, Jordan, and then I think Director Manuel wanted to say something. So I just wanted to make sure that was on your radar. So my name is Anu Jan. I am the executive director of the one staff person dedicated to the Gender Equity Commission. I'm thrilled to welcome new commissioners. I want to say thank you from the mayor and the mayor's office. That the work that commissioners do is so crucial. Having a diversity of voices of people who are thinking always about the gendered impacts of policy and service provision from the city, and the intersectional ways in which gender shows up. So not all women have the same needs. We know race is a major determinant. We put out the PIGR report, Pittsburgh's Inequality Across Gender and Race in 2019. So we know from our own data gathering how much we need to do to uplift all members of our communities and people who are gender non-binary as well. And we will look forward to doing that in conjunction with the brand new LGBTQIA+ Commission. And City Council is working on a new Racial Equity Commission, and the three commissions will be powerhouses together. So thank you from the mayor's office. They are very aware of the work that you're doing, very appreciative, and I think I'm really looking forward to 2021. We talked about building an equitable new normal in our June 2020 policy recommendations presented to City Council and the mayor's office. And I want to say that for some people, it might seem like the PIGR report is off the radar. I daily encounter people and help them use the report to make change. It's really brought a lot of action and activity, especially in the nonprofit philanthropic sectors, but corporations are asking for presentations about gender equity. And so the work continues, and I see it as part of my job to make sure that does not become a report on a shelf somewhere, that I'm here to say, no, we have not solved these problems. We needed the data, and it was a harsh reflection in a mirror for all of us who live in this city, and that's there's a lot of trauma, and we need to take trauma-informed approaches, but we also need to start busting down those barriers. We've had inaugural commissioners have rolled off. I just want to name them and thank them for their service as well from the mayor's office. Those commissioners were Megan Block. There's so many of them, I have to look at a list. Kelani Cook, Kathy Elliott, Lee Fogarty, who previously represented Pittsburgh for CDOC, group, Magdalene Jensen, Chelsea Palatino, and Mike Strelick, who has promised me as a city budget expert that he will be happy to come back anytime to make sure we understand city budgets, which is a big behemoth. Some of the exciting things for 2021 that the Mayor's Office and the Gender Equity Commission are working on are AAUW Work Smart trainings, our Workforce Equity Committee. We have our webpage, pittsburghpa.gov/GEC. Please, everyone who's watching today or the recording, check out the web tab for a lot of information about the commissioners who created that initiative and also access to free trainings throughout this year. And I want to just end with two things that one is celebratory and one is a little more concerning, but historical milestones. So February of 2018, the Gender Equity Commission had its first ever meeting. And this month, so we have 3 years of committee meetings, and this is Women's History Month. And so I've been doing a lot of presentations, especially about workforce equity in the local area. But I want to say happy Women's History Month. Of course, every month is Women's History Month, and the issues we work on are human issues, human rights issues, not women's issues. I also want to say, as we mark a year since COVID disrupted everyone's lives, the rise in anti-Asian violence, hate crime, and harassment has been heartbreaking. Throughout the country, including in Pittsburgh, there are a lot of people who are Asian American Pacific Islander who are feeling very vulnerable and often very invisible, which is part of the history. So I just want to say that when we take our intersectional approach, also think about how we can support and uplift people of all genders in those communities as well. And I want to say thank you. I am so heartened by working with this fantastic, amazing, the best commission in the city. Sorry, I said it out loud. Thank you.
Thank you, Anu, so much. And thank you for bringing some of those important issues to light and to remind us of what intersectional means. And also thank you so much for that report. And it's a really nice highlight of where we've come from and what we're doing. So very quickly regarding some of our old business before we move on to our presenters for this month. So some of the conversations that we had in January around some of the, some things moving forward, excuse me. Regarding the bylaws and taking a look at the bylaws and the structure, I am very pleased to first, I want to say to Commissioner Corbel, thank you for your hard work and dedication over the last several years and all the leadership roles that you've taken on. And so Commissioner Corbel is stepping down as the chair of the Governance and Leadership Committee. And Commissioner Coffey has graciously accepted that new role as the chair of that committee. Commissioner Corbel will continue to serve on that committee. And so moving forward, and again, we will have more conversations around committees, committee leadership, as we continue to talk about what we're going to focus on as a commission, but that is definitely one that is needed. And so Commissioner Coffey is going to lead and think of the ways and how we can best tackle issues like updating the bylaws, et cetera, and what that will look like. And so we will continue that conversation around bylaws and structure under the leadership of Commissioner Coffey. Regarding the keeping of files and the role of our secretary, we had a wonderful meeting with myself, Commissioner Hall, and our executive director. And we went through and had some great conversations around what that role will look like, including the keeping of files, records, et cetera. So again, that is an ongoing conversation, but one that is being taken care of and handled. And I'm very excited about the leadership of Commissioner Hall in her role as the secretary and how she is going to reimagine and reinvent it and continue to be mindful of how she can best serve and how the secretary's role can best serve the commission as a whole and the executive committee and leadership, and is going to continue to work very closely with the executive director, directly with Anu, to ensure the keeping of records, ensure that we're all on task and accountable for what we say we're going to do. So again, I really appreciate Commissioner Hall. And again, because of the hiatus, all of these conversations have taken place just in the last couple of weeks. So again, I'm really grateful to all of you for kind of just jumping back on the wagon, and of course with the Workforce Equity Committee who never really got off the wagon. Thank you for your continued work and all that you have done, including another celebratory moment is the inaugural AAUW training, which rolled out on March 8th. Thank you very much to the Workforce Equity Committee and to Anu for ensuring that that took place. It's been years of hard work, and so it's happening, everyone. This is a really big deal. And so we're very excited about that. And again, we'll continue to keep you all updated, continue to let you all know what's going on with that. Yes, Anu? Oh, you were applauding? Okay. Can't tell when people are raising their hands and when they're clapping. So yes, applause all around. Thank you for that. And so that is, unless anyone has anything else around old business that they want to bring to light. Oh, one more thing, clarification on budget. Thank you so much to our treasurer for providing some updated information on that. Even though we did submit that and accept it, I do want to say that we do have funding for the gender analysis. It's not zeroed out. It's not as much as it was, but it is there. And so I'm very much excited and looking forward to working with Commissioner Higginbotham and the team on that committee to see what that means moving forward, because that is important. And of course, working with all of you to reimagine what that means. And so under the leadership of Commissioner Higginbotham and of course the continued support of Commissioner Schultz and others who we work with them, I'm very excited about what that will mean for us in terms of the direction of the commission moving forward. Those are, I believe the main, oh, excuse me. We did talk about the vice chairs and their roles. You have to forgive me, everyone. I'm not feeling well today, so my mind is not, you know, it's kind of swimming all over the place. So if I have to circle back a few times, then, you know, but so I'm very excited. I did have conversations with both of our first and second vice chair, and I have asked Commissioner Overton to take point and on external issues the commission may focus on, and Commissioner Hansen, with years of experience and leadership in workforce development, organizational development, has agreed to help us look inward. And so again, it does not mean that no one else will be involved in this. It just means that it's another way for us to kind of share the leadership and share the focus. And so, and of course, we're still working on what that means and what that looks like. But it's just very exciting to have people who are really focusing and helping us to build and what that means, and bringing their expertise and experience. And also when we're called upon to either assist, support, to speak, to lead, it just means that there's more individuals taking on leadership. So that we have more than just one or two people who are able to carry that, and also able to be responsive when people reach out to us. And so, of course, in those leadership roles, we will also, of course, consider chairs of committees and also people's subject matter leadership. And then Commissioner Hale, again, very excited about you and representing Pittsburgh for CEDAW, because we all know that if it wasn't for CEDAW, we wouldn't be here. And I'm looking forward to a conversation with you and working closely with you to ensure that CEDAW is and remains an important part of the meetings and what we look to. So I look forward to those conversations with you. And so if no one else has anything regarding old business that needs to be covered or discussed at this time, we have some really incredible individuals who are going to share with us today. And I realize that time is now 3:56, so it's a little early. So if they're not quite ready, that is okay. But if they are ready, we would love to bring them forward. And today we are being joined by Trying Together, who is going to talk to us about childcare and early childhood equity. Are they with us, or do we need to give them a few minutes?
Yes, we're here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I see Shalonda and also Tiffany Simino, who is the early childhood and youth manager. I didn't know if we wanted to go to Jordan Fields, who wanted to give us some updates from the mayor's office, or move that to later.
Okay, well, Jordan, let me ask you, Jordan, how much time do you need? Right? Do you need more than 4 or 5 minutes?
Not at all.
I'm still waiting.
Okay, then Jordan, we would love to hear from you.
Not at all. And actually, I see that Tiffany's on this call, which is really great because the 2 items that I were going to bring up, I'm actually working on with her. So if Tiffany wants to provide any further information, I think that'd be great because she's excellent. One, we had our first LGBTQIA+ commission meeting last Friday, which, yeah, literally jazz hands. It was phenomenal. The commissioners are excellent. And they have some wonderful, wonderful ideas related to policy and programming. So I just wanted to highlight that because they are a historic commission. Also, another thing that I'm working on with Tiffany is our HRC Municipality Equality Index score, which is something that we already typically get 100 points for, 100 out of 100. But this year, it sounds like, well, we've come to the conclusion that we'll be able to score some bonus points based on policy and programming that is currently in place and in the works in the city. Tiffany, please feel free to add on anything. I just wanted to bring those 2 items up today and not take up too much space or time.
Yeah, not too much to add. Just the LGBTQIA+ Commission is really excited to work with the Gender Equity Commission and some of the other commissions in the city, and would love to at some point, they're working on a schedule to have some representation from the GEC come in to kind of talk about what you all are working on and some ways that you may be able to collaborate, especially around things like all gender restrooms and changing facilities and those sorts of things. But they're very excited to get to work as well.
That is extremely exciting. And yes, the LGBTQIA+ Commission is a historic commission. And I am personally very excited about this one, and remember all the effort that went into bringing it back. And also the fact that there are people who serve on that commission who were a part of the original crew who started this. And so there's a lot of intergenerational work on that commission. And so again, seeing the names of the people listed on that commission, it was very exciting. It's wonderful. And I think I can speak for us all to say that we wish them all the best and hope that they get all the support that they need externally and internally to be able to make intentional and real change towards equity for everyone. So very, very, very excited. And as Anu said, all of these new commissions focused squarely on human rights initiatives have the potential to make some powerful, as Anu said, powerhouse of change. So thank you, Jordan, for those 2 very exciting pieces. And that was it for me today? Okay.
That was it. That was it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so, Anu, so we have with us, we have Shalonda Spencer and Tiffany Simino. Is that who we have with us from Trying Together?
Kara.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna move it to Tiffany to introduce the group, and then we talked about basically giving us an update. What are the things the Gender Equity Commission needs to know? Childcare is certainly a very gender centric issue, and so I will just stop talking. And is that okay, Tiffany, if you introduce your colleagues? Thanks.
yeah, I would love to. So hi, everyone.
Tiffany,
My
can
name
you also introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are and what your role is, just for the people who don't know how awesome you are?
Sure thing. I love that intro. So anyway, hi everyone. My name is Tiffany Gorman Semino, and I work in the Mayor's Office in the Office of Equity. And I work as the Youth and Education Manager. So I do a lot of work around early childhood, out of school time, summer youth employment. But the majority of my work has been around early childhood. And I work very closely with Trying Together. So Kara, the executive director, is here, and Shalonda, who does policy work for Trying Together, are on the call, and have been working with Trying Together for several years to look at how the city can support early childhood, how we can be supportive, how we can have a part to play in that ecosystem. So I would love to pass it over to Trying Together, and when they're done, I can give a couple updates on some of the things that we're doing on the city's end to support through grant programs, through some professional development, some of the work that we're doing. But I would love to turn it over to Trying Together.
Thanks, Tiffany. Hi, everyone. I'm Kara Simonello, Executive Director for Trying Together. It's wonderful to meet you all. Some of you I know by name and have had sort of various interactions with over the years. Jesse is one of them. Of course, Deb Gross, who was really integral to some of the initial work that the city really undertook and put the city really out front in terms of its support of early childhood and childcare. So I'm thrilled to be here, and you're a new friend of mine. I know you were on a couple webinars that I did in January. I recognize your name and some of the chat box. So I'm thrilled to be here with all of these wonderful advocates. And I'm joined by my policy director, Shalonda Spencer. We're going to just go over sort of a high level, where does childcare stand, as an opportunity to sort of level set and provide just some grounding information. And of course, Shalonda and I are very informal. And so folks should feel really comfortable to ask questions along the way. There may be, Jessie, I know, is in some ways expert in this space. She may have different questions than someone else does. So don't hesitate to ask along the way, but of course we'll also pause at the end for questions. And thank you, Tiffany, for the introduction. And I'll say Tiffany's a wonderful asset to the city, being an early childhood educator by trade, Tiffany, right? You never
That's
forget,
correct, yeah.
You don't forget your roots. You don't forget your roots. So anyway, obviously this is just the intro slide. You have Shalonda and my email information. Don't ever hesitate for anyone to follow up afterward with specific questions. And we'll be sure to share this slide deck with you all afterward as well. And so just next slide. For folks that don't know us, I thought I'd just start by telling you a little bit about our organization. Trying Together was formerly called the Pittsburgh Association for the Education of Young Children. Some folks may know us by that name. Our acronym was PACEY. So if you heard the name PACEY, we are one and the same. We just went through a rebrand in early 2018, primarily because the AEYC structure, which is part of a national organization, went through its own sort of restructuring. And the beautiful thing about our name is that it comes from one of our tried and true best advocates for early childhood, Fred Rogers, who really talked about the important work that adults and children do together, and that is trying together, trying to learn, trying to grow, trying to understand our own feelings. And for an organization like ours, we work to support the adults in children's lives. It felt like the really right name to capture that relationship between children and adults, and to really put it in action, right? I think we're all trying every day. I'm a parent of two. I have good days and I have bad days in my parenting role. And so I think sort of underscoring that sort of commitment as a working together piece is really important. So We do 3 big buckets of work. We support early childhood professionals, and that ranges from everyone that's in the formal childcare system. So I'm in a licensed childcare to a home-based setting, to even those that aren't necessarily part of the formal setting, relative providers. So here in our state, we have a number of folks that are grandma or auntie or uncle who care for a related child. And because their family qualifies for Childcare Subsidy, that funding, that state funding goes to them because we really value kinship care and want to elevate that. So we work to support the adults in children's lives, whether that's the formal childcare space or the informal relative space. We do that through a million different ways, everything from coaching and mentoring to professional development, instruction, and anywhere and everything in between. That's probably our biggest bucket of work. It's the most staff dedicated to that work. And then the sort of other big bucket of work, and Shalonda, you'll meet her in just a second when she'll introduce herself when she goes over some of these slides. But Shalonda leads a team of folks who really work to elevate the needs and rights of children and their caregivers at the state, local, and federal level by way of policy and the way in which we invest in early childhood. So we have a team of policy folks who are, they are one of the best. And then our third bucket of work is really related to community resources and partnerships. And that's why we really appreciate so much this opportunity to work with the Gender Equity Commission, because the way in which we make progress or the way in which we make change is really by collaboration. It's by partnering together and leveraging each other's sort of opportunities and strengths and access and networks and all that good stuff. So community partnerships and resources is a big piece of our work. So that's a little bit about who we are. We've been around since the 1960s, sort of fully funded with staff since the early 2000s. Our offices are here in the city of Pittsburgh. Our biggest work is probably in Allegheny County, though we do serve all of Southwest Pennsylvania. So we do support providers and programs throughout the 10 counties of Southwest PA. So that's just a little bit of level setting about us. Next, we'll talk a little bit about sort of the current state of early learning and childcare and its effect on families. Again, I think Anu has heard me talk about this in some of the other webinars that I've done. But as you can imagine, I think I'm imagining there's some folks on this call who are parents themselves. And so you've had personal experience about what's been happening during the pandemic. If we sort of go back a year from now, what is today's date? The 15th, 16th, right? Oh my gosh, I call it the 16th of March was when my office shut. So it was literally 1 year ago today. I can't believe it. When sort of it seemed like the world shut down for us. And pretty immediately what had happened was the governor sort of made his announcement and everybody shut down. Everybody ran home and shut down. And then pretty quickly after that, the governor said, oh, crud, actually, childcare can be open because we still need essential workers to go to work. And so they quickly created a new process for childcare to remain open and sort of thus began a year-long sort of reaction to what was happening in our larger community and what decisions were being made at the state and federal level. So where we stand now is all childcare is open. And quite frankly, they've remained open since March. Unlike K-12, childcare has been open and serving children. The difference has been that they have limited their capacity. So as you know, most childcare is licensed. They have an occupancy or a capacity limit. So let's say it's 100. Most of them were operating at about 25 to 50% of capacity for the first 6 to 8 months of COVID, of the pandemic. And as you can imagine, when you're a small business, of which more than 50% of childcare in Allegheny County are small businesses owned and led by women, When you're not filling to capacity, you're losing revenue. And so they both held back how many children they could serve, because families weren't attending childcare like they had been before, because jobs were being lost, because families were having to stay home with school-age children. So they're saying, well, why send my younger child to childcare if I'm home with my school-agers? But they were also really holding back on their capacity because they wanted to make sure that they were mitigating COVID. And the recommendations were to create space, right? To make sure there was space between children playing. So, so as of now, as of March 16th, the vast majority of childcare, we have about 615 programs in Allegheny County. The vast majority of them, and off the top of my head, I don't know the number for the city, but it'll come to me at some point. The vast majority of them are probably at about 50 to 75% of capacity. And as you see from the slide, over 300 childcare providers have permanently closed across the state of Pennsylvania since the onset of the pandemic. In Allegheny County, well, actually, let me back up. In the state of Pennsylvania, we have something called the Quality Rating and Improvement System, QRIS. And our system is called Keystone Stars. And it is almost the cheat sheet for parents to know who's considered a quality or a high quality center and who is not considered. The reality is it's voluntary to engage in Keystone Stars. And so there's some sort of, there's some gray space about sort of reporting on the number of star 3-4s, which are considered your high quality programs. But it's a starting place for us to better understand the landscape. So here in Allegheny County, about 42% of childcare facilities are considered high quality. They're considered star 3 or 4 or NACE accredited. And we've got about 10,000 children, almost 11,000 children under the age of 5 who are underserved and eligible to receive childcare subsidy, but don't have access because the funding is not there from the state and the federal government. In the city of Pittsburgh, 51% of children are in need of childcare. So we have a whole lot of gap in what's accessible in terms of the needs of children and their families. So that's sort of the state of access to childcare right now. So you've got a suppressed childcare landscape, sort of mitigating the number of children that they're serving because of COVID. And before that, you had at least 11,000 children that had a need for childcare subsidy, but didn't have access because the funding wasn't there. That, I will tell you, during COVID has actually gone down, because the way in which you get subsidy is you have to have a job. And what we know about what's happened during the pandemic is a lot of families have lost jobs, right? But as we get the vaccine going and the economy begins to reopen, what has to happen is we need all childcare capacity available and open, and we need to be ready from the state's perspective with enough funding to serve all the children who have a need, all the children and their families who have a need for childcare. So that's sort of the current state of childcare on families and children. The other issue that has continued to be a challenge is that childcare in and of itself is an extremely underfunded sector, right? So I mentioned about how subsidy wasn't fully funded. Well, when you look at families who have work needs that are non-traditional hours, so outside of, say, your 7 to 6 sort of work day, there are a number of obviously second and third shift workers who have children. They're trying to raise their children, but the opportunity for childcare during those hours just don't exist. And so the other issue that existed before the pandemic that has continued to exist during the pandemic, it became especially obvious, especially with our medical workers early in the pandemic, is just a lack of access for childcare during non-traditional hours. So those are sort of two big things that are hanging on our families right now. So now that you sort of have a sense of what's happening for families, let me talk a little bit about what's happening for the workforce. You know, this is why I think I love so much that we were invited to talk to your commission, is that the workforce itself is a women-led workforce. It's about 94% female-led and staffed. Of that 94%, about 38 to 40% are women of color. Here in Pennsylvania, the average wage to provide care to children is $9.71 an hour, less than what you make at Aldi's, less than what you make at Giant Eagle, less than what you make at Sheetz. And here in Pennsylvania, we know that 50% of our childcare workforce are utilizing government benefits. So because of that suppressed wage, they have no other choice but to then leverage the additional government benefits that exist. So there is an extreme lack of access to wages and benefits that enable you to care for your family. It's not infrequent for me to hear from a child care provider who is of childbearing age and maybe just beginning to child rear themselves, who have said, I actually have to step away from my job. I bet Tiffany had this experience as a director. I have to step away from my job as an early childhood educator because I can't afford to stay employed and pay for childcare because my wages don't allow me to do that. So we have a real workforce issue. On top of sort of the demographics of the workforce, because of those low wages, we have a high turnover in terms of the system. So we have a lot of folks that come into early childhood, but don't stay with it. And it's because it's not a viable career. Unlike when you think about sort of K-12, when the starting wage is $42,000 a year and you're only going up, here in early childhood, you know, you might swing between $9 and maybe at your cap, get to $15, but that's over a considerable amount of time. So we have a workforce issue that's sort of compounded by all of the inequities that exist for our field. So I'm going to pause there and I'm going to pass it to my colleague Shalonda, who's going to talk about the next slide.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shalonda Spencer, and I'm the Director of Government Affairs and Public Policy with Trying Together. And so my colleague took you through just basically what's going on and what's happening here on the ground when it comes to ECE and how it affects the equity pieces of women. And so I want to talk about how do we actually get here? You know, there's always a past before we get to the present. And so I'm going to dive into some policies that got us to where we are right now that had affected us, which were poor policy on the federal and the state level. And this begins early since the 1900s. Like the mother's pension, not child care, was an act that was implemented under the Theodore Roosevelt's administration. And he felt like, hey, listen, women just need to stay at home, right? He felt like, you know, women didn't belong in the workspaces and stuff like that. That's what his philosophy were. So he decided to create these pensions where women can be able to sit at home. But unfortunately, these funding could not sustain any type of family. And he also, you know, of course, didn't want to elevate the workforce when it came to women. So basically, women were sitting at home, not being valued as if, you know, and honestly, we always, at our organization, we always talk about providers and families feel like they are valued in ECE. And so I realized as I was researching a lot of these policies, like, you know, they didn't feel, you know, families and mothers and child care providers didn't feel valued back then as well either. In 1930, between the 1930s and 1940s, you had the child care as a response to national crisis. So basically there was funding being sent from the federal level. And this was during the Great Depression and also during the Second World War, as a matter of fact. And this funding was called Workers' Progress Administration funds. And they were basically dedicated to serve emergency nursery schools, providing unemployment opportunities for teachers and nurses and cooks. But after World War II, had ended, so did the funds. So they felt like this was only considered for national crisis. And so therefore, from 1942 to 1946, there were approximately 3,000 centers that were being funded, which served 600,000 children across the country. But unfortunately, when the war ended, so did the funds. So it was very unfortunate for a lot of families and women, especially when their husbands were coming back from war, which goes into our from 1980 to 1990. There was a lot of child care and welfare reform. And the child care and welfare reform during this area, there was a lot, like this is where we got our child care and development block grants was originated from. And basically it assisted low income families and it helped support them in times of need. And also we had an at-risk child care programs and many other programs that were enacted during this time. Well, they felt this is where the language came from, when they felt like most of the women who were receiving these benefits were women of color. So they labeled it as welfare queens, and they considered them as lazy moms who were basically getting public assistance, as if they just didn't want to work or couldn't find work. And so that's when President Bill Clinton decided to say, hey, we're going to change something, and he decided to create TANF, and that's why TANF was created. And it required a lot of requirements, such as making you go to work for a certain amount of hours, and it also limited how long you can get the assistance. So yeah, we're here because of things that happened in the past, and it's unfortunate because our children, from past policies and everything like that, our children and family are definitely suffering right now in a time of need, even currently during COVID. And so our child care development block grant was basically, it does not require states to pay 75% of market rates for families. It only recommends. And then that basically, for years, Pennsylvania has only reimbursed 25% of that market. And on March 1st, which was a few weeks ago, it changed to 40%. So of course, we're still not where we need to be, but we are thankful for the progress that we have made. And Pennsylvania used to be a leader in investing in or supporting early child education, but unfortunately, that's no longer the case.
Thanks, Shalonda. I just want to emphasize that last point that you made, Shalonda. I think the reason why we always feel it's important to talk about the history is it's important to know how we got to where we are today. The system makes sense the way it is because of the way in which it historically played out, right? So we are sort of steeped in inequity today because it's been inequitable from the very beginning. We created that system to purposely be where we are today. And I can't sort of underscore enough. So when we talk about childcare subsidy, again, childcare subsidy, for those that don't know, is for families who are working or in school part-time at minimum, in school part-time or working at part-time, and who are under 200% of poverty. So I'm going to use some rounded numbers. 200% of poverty here is around $54,000. So if you're a family making under $54,000 and you're working or going to school, you can qualify for childcare subsidy. But the government is only reimbursing the childcare provider 40% of what the market rate is to provide that care in other places. So what I like to say, or not, I don't like to say this, but what is true about this statement is that we are essentially taking people that have low economic means and we're putting them in locations where it's typically of lower quality because they can't afford to move up in quality. They can't afford to compensate their staff at a higher rate to attract talented staff because the federal government and the state government is only reimbursing at right now, just starting March 1st, 40% of market rate. Prior to March 1st, for 10 years, for a decade, they were only reimbursing at 25% of market rate, which is just absolutely shameful. And so the federal government has said, from a policy perspective, We recommend that you reimburse at 75%, but recommend is not a strong enough word. We need to require that states reimburse at 75%. And I'll tell you, there's a whole nother, we're not going to get into it on this call, but for folks that really are like, this topic interests you and you want to know more, we actually, the notion of market rates as sort of the baseline for reimbursement is in and of itself an inequitable system. So we actually need to change from using market rate as the rate that supplies the baseline to really looking at what's the cost of doing quality work, right? Because market is based on what the market will pay. Well, when you're a young family and you're, you know, just sort of coming into your career, you can only bear so much cost for childcare. So a lot of what the market is telling you is what I can afford is actually a lot lower. Well, that's not what the cost of the care is. That's what the market can bear. So it's a really important distinction. So we've got a system, you know, Shalonda pointed out, we've got a system historically that is just based on inequity, and it persists today. So let's see, so where are we at? What needs to change? So here's some things that are occurring today. So we all know the American Rescue Plan passed, put out $39 billion to states and counties and territories. That's great. In Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania, for childcare specifically, will receive $1.18 billion with a B dollars. That is the single largest investment the state has seen in childcare in decades. It's a huge, huge number. As you know, though, that's the federal investment in childcare. What we need is for our state lawmakers to prioritize childcare with its state's resources. And that's an important distinction because the way in which childcare and early learning is funded is through a number of mechanisms, federal and state. What sometimes happens is the state says, oh, I got all these federal dollars, so maybe I can just use those dollars to fund some of the things we want to get done, but not put our own investment into that. Well, that's called supplantation, and that's a no-no. And the federal government says it's a no-no. And so, you know, alongside sort of the federal advocacy to get investments, we've got to continue doing state advocacy to say, and state lawmakers, you need to put in your fair share of the system. And then even locally, you know, I think one of the things, and I know Tiffany will talk about this at the end, and certainly Councilwoman Gross has been a leader in making this happen along with a number of other council members, but local policymakers, decision makers need to also elevate this as a priority. And quite frankly, the city of Pittsburgh, and Tiffany and I participated in the National League of Cities work of an early learning cohort, a number of years ago, is quite ahead in that way because they have actually earmarked dollars of the city's budget toward early childhood. They created an office. They created a position. So they put their money where their mouth was. That's what the right money where your mouth is. I don't know. I always forget what the phrase is. But they put it out as a priority and have invested in it as a priority. And so what we need to make sure happens is, so we've got the federal government investing. We need the state to invest. And then locally, where do we find and where do we make sure we allocate local dollars? And there's a lot of discussion about how to do that and where to find the funds. But that's also sort of a lever that needs to be pulled. So back to you, Shalonda, I think.
So I want to just basically talk about how do we improve the field of ECE. So myself and my team of Dynamic Women, we created we created a policy agenda, and we wanted to focus the agenda around diversity, equity, inclusion, and we came from also a justice lens as well. You know, we didn't want to leave that out because we realized that there's a lot of things in ECE that could be improved, and so I wanted to just give us some pointers on how we can do that. And one is by elevating the early childhood workforce in our discussions. I know my colleague talked about, you know, equitable compensation, especially around women of color, because they make up the majority of, you know, employment in it, but also bridging that wage gap can help rebuild the education system and the workforce within the field. Advocating for a family thriving compensation for the early childhood workforce is very important. We feel like, you know, with turnover rates are very high right now due to low pay, which creates an unstable environment for staff and of course for children. So therefore we need to make sure we're advocating for equitable compensation within the workforce, along with supporting professional growth opportunities. During COVID, I know Kara talked about some of the issues that we were facing. And so one of them was the ERAs. And so that was basically money that was funded to child care providers, and it helped them compensate their employers for incentives such as, you know, elevating their, they wanted to go get an education, or, you know, rewarding them for, you know, seeking more professional growth opportunities. Well, unfortunately, those things were taken away and replaced with something else. And so now, we have to figure out ways, how do we go and support more professional growth opportunities? Because, you know, as a college student, or those who probably finish school, probably, you know, maybe I did this for nothing, and we don't want our teachers or educators to feel that their work and their hard work and education is in vain. So it's very important that we elevate that, and also expanding diversity and leadership roles within that, because we realize representation matters, and children are coming in all shapes, sizes, colors, genders, everything. And I think it's very important that children see people who look like them, people who are, you know, connected to them in all different realms. And so basically increasing diversity in early childhood education roles will potentially elevate the voices and ideas of future leaders, because children sometimes gravitate to people who, you know, they say, hey, I identify with this teacher, or identify with that teacher. And I think that's very important that we recognize that when it comes to providing childcare for these children and families. And I wanted to end it with this, just basically, how can you all help, for those of you who are on the call with us. So thank you again for tuning in, to listening to us as long as we have, you know, we've been talking, and for really engaging into the conversation. Right now, we want to ask you if you would like to be a part of the work that we're doing at Trying Together. You can sign up to be an organization supporter of our campaigns. We have 3 major campaigns that we focus on, which is Pre-K for PA, Start Strong, and Childhood Begins at Home. And those are our statewide campaigns that we have and we partner with other people with. Also, you can sign up on our public policy newsletter. You can go to our website, and the tab of, you know, advocacy is at the top of our tab. And that would be a great opportunity for you to just learn about, also keep updated with the work we're doing on the ground and within our organization. Also, you can contact your elected official, join us on a legislative visit. Right now, we're having a lot of visits throughout the budgeting season, which I think is, you know, I'm from Mississippi, so I'm learning a lot about how your budget season goes. So I'm very excited to dive in. And so I think that if you would like to schedule a visit, you can email me at shalonda@tryingtogether.org and let us know who your representative are. And if your representative is not in our area, we do have other partners that we partner with that you can possibly join them with your to meet with your representative. So we have that information for you. Also, you can join our Southwest PA Early Childhood Education Leadership Council. We meet every 4th Thursday, and we basically just meet with leaders who are our, you know, grass tops, who are very active in trying to advocate on some of the issues that we update them on, especially during budget season. And we'll be meeting up until June. So just, of course, send me an email if you'd like to join. And also ask your employer how they are supporting family, friends, and policies. Making this part of your everyday conversation, because like my colleague said, you know, families, you know, parents and moms that are working at home And right now, there's a lot of conversation need to be had, because if COVID-19 didn't teach us nothing else, it taught us that early childhood education matters.
Yep. And that's all we had for you. Thanks, Shalonda.
I have a question, if I can.
Yeah.
So who
Hi,
is,
Allison.
hi. So who is your biggest, who would you say is your biggest legislative champion on this issue?
Ooh.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you asked that question. That's a great question. One of the things we strive to do really thoughtfully and intentionally is ensure that our issue is treated as bipartisan. You know, we are in a purple state, and we've got a Democratic governor, we've got a Republican legislature. The way that we have been successful, and there's actually a document on our website in that advocacy tab, and we can send this to you as a follow-up. But the way that we have been successful in getting increased state investments as much as we have is because we've worked across the aisle and said, look, this doesn't have to be your issue. This doesn't have to be your issue. It needs to be everyone's issue. You know, how do we make this important to you? What do you need to hear? How do we need to explain it to you? And so I would really say that we don't have one champion. We have a lot of folks owning the space. And I think that's what in large part has made us sort of have the success that we've had. There are a lot of people that will say, quite frankly, I'm a champion of early childhood, but when it comes down to it, you don't get much out of it. And so, I hate to say names only because I'll leave out someone that's been really helpful, and it'll get recorded, and then I'll get in trouble. And really, it's been just so many folks on both sides of the aisle. Yeah. When we started a lot of our campaign work, Allison, I'll tell you, Corbett was in office. And so, we've had to sort of respond to the changing landscape of sort of who holds political power. And so being really thoughtful about that is part of our work.
Well, no, you're right, because people think that is this one issue or one party's issue or another. They both, you have to appeal to both, or no legislation is going to move forward.
Yeah. And I'll just even say this at the federal level. Early childhood got significant investments under the Trump administration. They've also gotten significant investments under the Biden administration. So, it's an important piece to remember about sort of how to manage the changing political landscape.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I know that we have a few people that want to ask questions. I also know that Tiffany wanted to add a few things towards the end of the presentation. So if it's okay, what I'd like to do is, because we're at 4:39, is go to Tiffany and let her finish up. And then Jesse, I do want you to have a chance to ask your question. Kara and, excuse me, do you all have a few minutes to stick around? Just for one or two questions from commissioners after Tiffany speaks?
I'm good till 5 o'clock.
Okay, yep. Thank you. So that's what we'll do. Okay, so Tiffany, go ahead and.
Yeah, sure thing. So I'll just hop right in. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm just going to talk about, Kara did talk about looking at some of the investments that are made on the city's end. And, we have been very lucky in that we have a lot of support from city council members, including Councilwoman Gross, who's on this call, as well as a mayor who really looks at early childhood as a priority. And so we will soon be launching a quality fund for childcare facilities. And this is a $2 million fund that was passed by city council. And these are funds that will be able to be used by any childcare facility that's located in the city of Pittsburgh. And so I'm going to just do a quick look at, I can show you kind of what some of the eligible expenses. So Kara talked about the QRIS system, Keystone Stars, which is our quality system. Facilities are also required to have a be inspected yearly and maintain a certification. And so one of the things that we hear from childcare facilities, and sometimes I'll get calls, and I know that the Early Learning Resource Center and Trying Together do, that we'll have a facility who has something that is relatively small, maybe $1,000 fix, a $2,000 fix, but without that without the funding, you know, a lot of them don't have the funding, as we spoke about, to take care of these issues that come up. They risk losing their certification. And so our program is going to help facilities with some of the facilities improvements that are needed, as well as program improvements through the QRIS system. And looking at some of the eligibility requirements. So they have to be in the city of Pittsburgh. They have to be current on their certifications. They have to have written estimates for the materials and the renovations they want to have. And we're also looking at some funding limits. So we're going to be able to assist childcare homes and family childcare facilities, smaller centers and larger centers. And really looking at, we would love to be able to have, there are a lot of facilities that want to move up in the state quality system, but they're just not able to make those improvements. So, you know, they're not able to do it because they can't afford it. They are serving families who, again, as you just heard, are now getting only 40% of market rate. Before they were getting 25% of market rate, which before I came to work for the city, I was a child care center director. And we were at the highest quality level, and we had staff with degrees, and, you know, we had small class sizes, and even for an infant, for up to 10 hours of care a day, we were getting less than $50 a day. And so you have to look at, a lot of these facilities just don't have, they really want to move up in the system, and they want to be able to provide quality care. They just don't have the funding to be able to do that, as well as things that may come up, things that break, or facility issues. So that's going to be some of the things that we're going to be supporting in this. And this is going to be something that's going to assist. I know that one of the things that has come up a lot is staffing. And so that's a huge barrier, but then the facilities piece is as well. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. The other thing we're working on is we'll be, in April, we're going to be holding our first one, but we also do some safety trainings through our EMS and public safety. So we do a pediatric CPR first aid, fire safety training, and we're looking at making that virtual. So it's more friendly around COVID and making sure we're being safe. So those are some of the things that we do. And we're always looking to just really try to figure out what we can do for childcare facilities. So sometimes I'll get, you know, I've gotten calls because there are facilities that have groundhogs that have infested their playgrounds, and or they have people that are illegally dumping in the alley and they can no longer use their parking lots, or they may want to be connected to their city council members because they have neighborhood issues. And so those are some of the day-to-day things that we work on in our office. So just wanted to share those with you.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. And I really want to thank the folks from Trying Together for coming and sharing. I know that we have a couple of commissioners that had some questions. I just wanted to quickly say, you know, and just listening to everything that you're talking about regarding the economic impact, the gender wage and employment discrimination implications, and the history, right? Looking at the history of gender discrimination, and of course, using race and racism and anti-Blackness in terms of how a lot of these things were built and are viewed. And also just to point out the Gender Equity Commission, when it presented policy recommendations under creating an equitable new normal, it named supporting women-owned businesses and also access to quality early childhood education as two areas of concern, because we know the implications of what that means for creating gender equity. And so seeing, and again, who the people who are leading and have been leading for a very long time, and also too, the work that the mayor's office has been doing for quite some time. So I remember when this big grant project first started and when it was voted on. And so to see it rolling out at such a critical time as this is, it's nice to know that there are things being done. And so I quickly want to go ahead and Jesse, I know that Commissioner Ramey, I know that you wanted to ask a question or say something. And then in the interest of time, after Commissioner Ramey goes, I would like to move on. However, I want to stress the fact that I think it's important that we continue to point people in the direction of how they can find out more about your work. Also how commissioners can get in touch with you all and how perhaps we can stay up to date on the work that you're doing. Obviously we have Tiffany in the mayor's office, but also if anyone has any direct questions, you know, I want to make sure that if anyone does have any questions they want to ask, that today is not the last time they can do so. But in the interest of time, after Commissioner Ramey goes, I would like to move on. And so in terms of questions from the commissioners. And so Commissioner Ramey, please, you have the floor.
I was actually going to make a motion that we invite our friends back to have exactly that, a real policy conversation about what can be done at the Gender Equity Commission level. And thank you again, Kara, Shalonda, Tiffany, for being with us. This is such an important policy area. And I think you've lifted up so many ways that folks can get involved. And as you all know, you are singing my song when you talk about history. Shalonda, thank you so much. As a historian, this is actually my topic, right? So you are in my heart. And I would just love to have the opportunity to really dive a little deeper into some of the policy recommendations. Amanda just referenced our Building an Equitable New Normal. We had some really specific recommendations around how to support not only the businesses, but workers. And I would just love to have a chance to have a little bit more of that conversation in depth. And I know we're way past time. Time management is really difficult with our meetings. And I know we've got other work to do. So I was just going to make a motion if that would be helpful. I don't know if this is committee level work or another meeting, but I would love to talk more about sort of where we are with some of those policy recommendations that we made. Because we've got kind of out of the box thinking, some creative stuff too that I'd love to talk with you more about with this group.
So,
and that was part of the plan. Sorry, just that this was a presentation so the Gender Equity Commission could think about that. I just wanted to say that's squarely what the hope was.
So I think that right now, given the time, I do agree that we definitely need to talk about, we definitely, number one, need to invite them back to talk about this. I don't know if a motion is the right time to specifically cite when and how that's going to happen. I think it would be useful to work with them to see when bringing them back would make sense and how that conversation could happen. And I think that once we do that, I think we can have a really intentional conversation about incorporating their work into our work and how we can best support them. So I think that we do definitely need to be intentionally in touch, working very closely with Tiffany and really seeing how we can really support them in the best way possible. I think we definitely need to make sure we get a lot more information, and seeing as how we have a lot of conversations coming up in the very near future around what our focus is going to be, what committee work is going to look like, et cetera. I think we'll also have a lot more framework in place to more intentionally support this work in the future. And so there is a motion on the table. And so I think further discussion is perhaps needed. But I think that it's fair to say we all want to very intentionally support this work and identify the best way to do that. And I think also identifying when they will come back would also be really helpful. So I'm asking if we can table the motion for now and have further very intentional conversations so we can best support the work.
Yeah, absolutely. I did not put a motion forward, so there's no official motion. I just was going to suggest it if it would be helpful. So thank you.
Thank you. So I hate to do this. I'm definitely not one about rushing through. I hate that. However, it is 10 minutes to 5, but I want to thank our guests so much. This is such an important topic, and as we've indicated thoroughly, is urgent. And so we will be reaching out to invite you back in some capacity, whether it's working or for a follow-up presentation. Either way, this is extremely important, and I'm seeing a lot of head nodding, and so I think that the enthusiasm for supporting this work is certainly there with the commission, as Commissioner Ramey has definitely put forward in many levels. And so I want to thank you all so much for being here and for sharing with us, and of course, giving the public a chance to get to know you and your work better. It's very exciting, and thank you for your leadership on this. And Tiffany, again, thank you for your continued leadership, because you have been working very hard through the mayor's office to champion this important work. So I really want to thank you too. And so At this time, we do need to move forward because I want to also honor commissioners' time, and we have some pressing things that I'd like for us to talk about before we go, and also members of the public who are hanging out with us. Yes, Anu.
I just wanted to say that I will coordinate and find slides that Trying Together, Kara and Shalonda can share, and I'll put in the next newsletter. Just so anyone watching who wants a copy, I will make sure to get that out to folks.
Anu, thank you so much for that. So thank you for offering to coordinate, and also thank you for ensuring that the information for Trying Together is in the next newsletter so people have access to that. So I appreciate that. Okay, everyone. So before we go today, I do want us to talk about when and what time we're going to meet next. So right now we're meeting on Tuesdays, the third Tuesday of the month at 2:30, 3:30, depending on what the work looks like. And so I do want to just bring this forward for conversation and discussion. There has been some suggestions to moving our time back a bit to better accommodate individuals who have conflicting work schedules or are still assisting with virtual school, care work, etc. Anu has mentioned and brought forward that her time is somewhat flexible. The weekends are off limits, and I think that most of us are okay with that. But at this time, I would like to ask commissioners, how do we feel about Tuesdays if we change the time? Are we still okay with Tuesdays? How would we feel about Tuesdays?
I'm sorry, council's in session every Tuesday morning.
Yes, we will. No, we're not going earlier. Don't worry. Listen, we need.
I know you know that, Amanda. I appreciate it.
We need you in council voting. So no worries on that. We would be looking at a later time. So possibly 3 or even 3:30 at a start time, which means that on days like today, we may end about 5:30. How does that sit for commissioners? How are we? Yes.
This is Janet, and I was hoping you wouldn't say earlier, and so I'm thankful. But I'm okay if we pushed it back and then we ended at 5 or at the latest 5:30, and I'm okay with that.
Okay, so I'm hearing 3 or 3:30 start time. Is there a difference? Would it make a difference for anyone either way? I can say for myself, 3:30 would be a little easier for me, but if 3 o'clock works for the majority of people, I will continue to make it work. So yes, Commissioner Hanson.
Yes, I was wondering, since we don't have everybody here today, I think that sounds like a really good possible way to move forward. Could we have an email or something go out some way to just communicate to everybody, and then that would be another way to just get any feedback, that especially from our folks who aren't here.
Thank you for that. So I think actually a
survey. Sorry, a survey monkey maybe.
So a doodle poll or something.
Doodle poll, survey monkey.
Something, right? I think that's a really good idea.
To make that happen, I'll check with the executive committee and how you'd like it to go out, but I'll take point unless commissioners want to do it for some reason. Otherwise, I'll take point on generating some.
Okay. So I think that's a really good idea. And yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And Anu, since you offered to take point, thank you for that as well. Yeah, I think the executive committee, we can via email figure this out, the best way to send this out. And Commissioner Hanson, thank you again for ensuring that we're inclusive of everyone. That's really important because that's why we're having this conversation in the first place. Commissioner Schultz, did you have something to add, or?
Just a quick question about the format of the meeting. Are we going to be staying virtual indefinitely at this point? Because I think that, I mean, at least for me, that impacts the schedule and my ability to come to town and, all of that good stuff. So just trying to gauge, is this going to be the format that we use indefinitely?
I can answer a tech question that I've already been talking about when we're back to being allowed. Just so I am trying to ensure that when we're back together, we can include people via video. You may remember we had some trouble with the audio in the room that we were using. So I will do my absolute best and maybe work with Chief Director Manuel can elbow some people maybe, or kindly encourage. But I can answer that piece. I can't guarantee it right now, but I'm working on making it possible to be virtual for commissioners' convenience.
So it sounds like there's a couple of things that are on the table. We're not just looking at day and time, but also whether we're in person or virtual. So again, just kind of reinforcing the fact that we need to have further discussion on this. So, let's take a step back and again, a new suggestion of the executive committee having a conversation and figuring out how to move forward with this. I think that's a good course right now. Possibly even engaging Commissioner Coffey as the new chair of the Governance and Leadership Committee, and getting some input from her as well. But let's be intentional about this. That means though, for now, unless barring some, I don't know, cosmic event, for now, our next meeting is going to still be the third Tuesday of April at 2:30. And of course, we'll figure what the agenda looks like, but let's have that intentional conversation. One additional piece that we did not talk about, so there was going to be a presentation by our executive director and our secretary on communication, I'm sorry, I have a splitting headache. Possible modes of communication, digital communication via, besides email. And so my question to you is, in lieu of a presentation, how would you all feel about emailing out just a few details on the two platforms that I think we're thinking about? It was Slack and Trello, I believe, were the two. Okay, because that's something else that we do need to talk about and identify at our next meeting so that we can, again, figure out a way to communicate. Commissioners talked about being bombarded by emails and how ineffective that was in some cases, but using email in some cases was better. But we identified that we just have to figure out and begin to use another mode of communication. So there was going to be a presentation, but given that it's 4:58, I think that an email for now with details on those two things for you all to consider and come to the table ready to discuss and move on for our next meeting. Excuse me. So that is all that, yes. Oh, I'm so sorry, Commissioner Manuel, yes.
And I appreciate everyone hanging on, but I cannot let this moment go.
No, please.
This is our third birthday. Happy National Women's History Month to everyone and to those that are in attendance. But this is also in celebration and acknowledgement to the inaugural rollout of the training for the Pay Equity Project. And it was actually done on March 8th, which was International Women's Day. So I wanted just to have a little fun at the end. And we're giving out to one of the commissioners. This is titled Miss Monopoly. This game is acknowledging inventions created by women. And of course, all women will make more money. And so that's just one of our goals and objectives. So I put all commissioners' names in a box here, and I'm pulling the name, I'm not looking. And Sabrina Corbel, you are the winner of the Miss Monopoly. This is good. You've got girls. You can play games with them, let them see the history of what women have created. encourage them to be the best that they can be. I'm going to follow up with you offline via email. I will mail this out to you. I just want to say it's been a great 3 years. I'm glad to be, supported by the mayor and city council to serve on another term, but we got to have a little fun in all of this. So thank you for giving me 60 seconds to do that. But Sabrina, there you go.
Oh, Janice, does this mean maybe we can safely see each other in person?
Maybe you come down to the city county building.
We will find you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you so much for making sure you did that. I think that's such a beautiful end. And then before we go, I have not totally forgotten. Anu, was there anyone from the public, from the audience that had any remarks or wanted to share anything before we go?
They may post on Facebook and I'll follow up and let you all know, but not to me. And I just want to say thank you, Amanda, and I thank you to the City Channel team. We went over quite a bit, appreciate your support, and I feel like saying, Amanda, go rest if you can. But thank you all, commissioners, and everyone who's watching our meeting today.
Thank you. So would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
Okay. So I believe Allison made a motion to adjourn, and I believe Commissioner Overton seconded that motion. Okay. Everyone, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you all, and look out for our emails. Have a wonderful day and happy Women's History Emphasis Month, everyone.